Hey Ringside crew, welcome to the internationally known Dudes at Ringside podcast. And now here's your host, Joe Panther III.
Hello there, wrestling fans, and welcome to another episode of the internationally known Dudes at Ringside podcast. Usually, my guests are from people from England, Scotland, Portugal, and their careers are just flourishing and going somewhere. They're almost, they're on their journey. But today, Ringside crew, you're in for a treat. This gentleman his career has hit so many milestones that he is officially walking off in the Sensite tomorrow. This is why I feel so honored. So honored. This is like not even an achievement on my wall. This is just a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful moment. Let's give a warm Dudes at Ringside welcome to Jeremy Lightfoot. Welcome, Jeremy.
Hey, everybody. Hi.
Yes. So, Jeremy, let's go back. Let's go back to when you first started your wrestling journey.
Okay.
What was it like the first time you walked through the doors of your training facility that you trained with?
Well, see, that's just it. When in 95 or 96. That's the age right there. It's already foggy. My first year in the business was training on site. I would help the promoter, Frank Reed, who ran Central States Wrestling Alliance at the time. I was his music man. I was his ring guy, popcorn, you name it. I did it. Everything but wrestle, man. Everything but the show. And my training was 3 or 4 hours before the show with whatever wrestler showed up early and wanted to work on a spot. I didn't really get official, and I hate to use that word because that's not slamming anybody that trained me beforehand. I didn't actually get official wrestling training until 97 with the MMWA. MMWA, SICW, they were combined at the time. The companies have since split, but that's another story for another time. But as far as walking into that facility the first time, it was awestruck. And it was also very humbling. It helped me realize that you are not a superstar. You are not on top of the world. The ring was the old wrestling at the Chase ring, so this thing had been beat to hell and back. There was an old boxing ring that literally consisted of 4 posts into the floor, ropes that looked like spaghetti. And if we couldn't practice in the regular ring, we went and practiced in the boxing ring. And you hoped to God that you got to that building early enough so you had a spot to work the actual ring. Because if you had to practice in the boxing ring, your back and knees and everything were going to hurt no matter what age you were.
So, like, how long did it know that? How long did it hit you? You knew that this was for you. Like, when did you realize that the pro wrestling business was for you? Did it take you like 2 or 3 practices, or where did you know that you hit your right?
I knew from the age of 2. I've been a professional wrestling fan since I was able to walk and talk. One of the greatest stories and I tell to this day, and I don't cuss too much, but I am going to drop one S-bomb. My dad, for the fans that are watching from St. Louis, my father used to take me down to the old Checker Dome, which is no longer there, and we would watch the National Wrestling Alliance. And I remember watching it on TV, but I remember the first time I was about 4 or 5, and them old arenas from the 80s, the arc wasn't that well. So if you sat and people stood up in front of you, you couldn't see. And the earliest memory I have of watching wrestling was my dad grabbed me by the hips. He put me up on his shoulders. And as he was lifting me up, he said, "Holy shit, Animal has a chair." And it was the Road Warriors versus the Midnight Express. One of the coolest things I ever seen. Animal smoked Bobby Eaton. Blood went everywhere. Dennis Condrey was down and he was busted open. I mean, that was it. I was hooked. From that point on, I was watching Saturday night after before the Three Stooges came on. Any event that was in St. Louis, I would beg, kick, and scream to get my dad to go. And it was not WWF. I was by far not a WWF fan. To me, and this is going to sound funny because me being a Native American character, those guys were too cartoony for me. I liked guys like Fist of Stone, Ronnie Garvin, Sting, Dusty Rhodes, Ricky Steamboat, guys that used names, not gimmicks. And I mean, there was more blood, there was more violence. It was awesome. And that was my introduction. I didn't actually see a live WWE event until after I had already became a wrestler. A buddy of mine, matter of fact, the guy that got me into wrestling, wanted to go see SummerSlam because he knew Kane personally. He knew Glenn Jacobs. And he was like, hey, I got 2 tickets. He lied to me. This is wild. He told me he had 2 tickets. Let's go to SummerSlam. We get down there and he walks up to a scalper and he's like, yeah, I need 2 tickets for it. I'm like, you said you had tickets. He goes, I'm getting tickets. And I had never seen a WWE event until that time. Everything was NWA for me. I was always a huge National Wrestling Alliance fan.
All right. So let's go a little further in.
Mm-hmm.
What were you thinking the first time you stepped through the curtain? And were you this character you are now, or were you a little bit?
Oh, yeah. I have
where
always
were you in
been
your characterization of the Lightfoot character?
Yeah, I've always been Jeremy Lightfoot. Now that there were times that I did a hooded gimmick if they needed, somebody didn't show up and we needed somebody to work twice. I had no problem. For all the fans of MMWA that are watching, I was El Uno Loco. I was Stealth. I was also the Red Devil. I was one of the members of the tag team Thunderbolt and Lightning. So surprise, surprise, that secret's out. But for the majority, I was Jeremy Lightfoot my entire career. And I mean, even to this day, that feeling you get when you walk through that curtain, it doesn't matter if it's in front of 20,000 people. It doesn't matter if it's in front of 20. That feeling is, there is no drug on this planet. There is no alcohol. There is no adrenaline that can fill that void. I mean, it is a blood pumping experience. Whether they're booing you, whether they're cheering you, if you're the face or the heel, you're feeding off of it. And I mean, man, it is a high that just no mountain can touch. It's amazing.
So when you went for the curtain for the very first time in your first match,
Mm-hmm.
what were you thinking? What was your thought process?
Holy shit, I can't believe I'm doing this. That was my legitimate. My first match was in August 8th of 98. And I had been training, and it was always kicked around the locker room that I was going to be this character, Jeremy Lightfoot, which I hated. Frank Reed, Lord rest his soul. I wish I could tell this man every day, thank you, because I thought the gimmick was stupid. I didn't think it was going to sell. I didn't think it was going to work. The last native to actually do anything was Tatanka. I thought it was going to be a cartoon joke. And the one time I did it, I was hooked. He kept telling me, no, you're going to be this Native American character. We're going to call you Jeremy Lightfoot. So anyway, fast forward to my first night, Pretty Boy Floyd had a flat tire. He wasn't going to make it. And they said, we need somebody to fight Searcher the opening match. That way Rage can come in and save you. And that sets up Rage and Searcher for the main event. And I was like, I don't have any gear. These guys were running around the locker room. I got a pair of black tights from Brian James. It was his spare tights. I used Brian James boots. Damian Butcher gave me a t-shirt that was all 80s cut up in the front and everything. And as I'm walking to the ring, or as I'm walking down the little corridor, I'm shaking my head and I'm praying. I'm like, tell me Frank is not going to call me that stupid Indian name. Please tell me he's not. I walk through the curtain and he's, ladies and gentlemen, from at that time it was Cheyenne, Wyoming. From Cheyenne, Wyoming, Jeremy Lightfoot. And I was like, you know what? I'm glad I'm on this high because I am pissed off that he used that name. And before me and Searcher locked up, he goes, start dancing, war dance. And I'm, at first you could tell I wasn't into it. I'm like, okay, and I'm doing this. And the crowd started coming up. And I'm like, what? These people are eating this stuff up, man. So I start really getting into the war dance, and and I was like, I was hooked. I mean, after that, I went out and bought my first headdress. My first wrestling outfit cost like $4,000 because I was going way over the top, man. I had the big headdress, the bone choker, the whole nine. And later I was like, yeah, I spent a little much. Maybe I'm going to tone it down for the second outfit. But yeah, that was my feeling. Was the initial feeling was, holy shit, I'm doing this. Even if this is my one and only match, I lived out my dream. I got to see what my heroes, the Road Warriors, got to experience. Yeah.
So with like you've wrestled with actual like people that have been in the WWE. Let's go into it. Like you knew the late great Kamala. Like, what kind of story do you have from Kamala?
Okay, I got a killer shoot story for Kamala. It was the first time I met James. Okay, Lord rest his soul. I mean, God.
I cried the day that I said he passed away in 2020. I lost my mind.
I did too. James was an amazing guy. So I smoked cigarettes at the time. I've since been able to kick the habit, which I'm proud of myself on that one. And so I'm in the locker room, and it was in Colfax, Iowa. And at the time, you couldn't smoke in the arena, but we could smoke in the locker room. And the funny thing was, it was just a curtain that was blocking us. So these fans knew we were smoking back there. And I put a cigarette in my mouth, and my trainer, one of my trainers, Frankie D, is sitting next to me, and he smacks the cigarette out of my hand. And I'm like, what are you doing? And he goes, you asked the veteran of the locker room if you are allowed to have a cigarette. Totally forgetting that Kamala is sitting like 3 inches from me, all 6'9", 400 pounds of this man. Okay, I mean, intimidating human being. And he's already in war paint, so he's even more intimidating. So I look to piss Frankie off. I look over at Harsh and I go, hey, I'm supposed to ask the veteran in the locker room if I can have a cigarette. Do you mind? And he was like, I don't care. So I go to put it back, and he smacks the cigarette out of my hand again. He goes, him. And I turn, and James has got that stare, and he's glaring at me. And I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, Kamala, sir, I'm a big fan. I've been a fan since '85. I remember when you worked Hogan and everything else. And I was a fan of yours. And and I need to have a cigarette before I go to the ring. Do you mind, sir, if I have some tobacco before I go to the ring? Yeah, I mind. And I'm like, all right, well, I guess I'll go outside. Grabs me by the back of my tights and goes, unless and see as you gonna give me one. And I'm like, come again? He goes, unless and seeing that you give me one. Man, I reached in my bag faster than I could. I grabbed my pack of cigarettes. I'm here you go, sir. You got a light? Yes, I do. And then I looked over at Harsh and Frankie, because not only am I now sitting next to Kamala, he bummed a cigarette off me. So we're sitting there. I'm like, this is great, man. We're going to share some stories.
I'd be jealous. Like, Kamala, this is the legendary Kamala right next to me, puffing up and smoking a cigarette with me.
Well, the funny thing was, I looked over at Harsh, and I'm all excited. I'm like, dude, he bummed a smoke. Harsh, he got that name for a reason. He goes, big effing deal. Of course, he didn't block it like I said, but big effing deal. I've already gave him a pack and a half, and he still won't buy his own. And I'm just
oh my God. Let's go into the stories. Like, what other fun stories that you could talk about from your journey from the ring that you could talk about. You won't get yourself in trouble for. Let's go on. Let's go do some more stories.
I got a good Bob Orton story, and Bob Orton was one of my trainers, and one of my claims to fame is that I actually helped train Randy. So that's, yeah. We were doing a show. It was in East Carondelet, Illinois, and the show prior, they hit Bob with a chair, and he went to block it with the forearm. And so the next show he showed up, he's casted, the forearm's rebroken. Well, shoot part of it, we're sitting there, and they actually have a paramedic put a forearm pad on his arm, and this woman is taping this thing on to the point where you can see Bob's arm is turning purple.
Oh, Jesus.
So he's in a cage match. And so I'm sitting there, and I've got my gigs out, and I'm putting my gigs in my tape, and he looks over and goes, "Hey, kid." Bob could never remember my name. I was always Kid. He goes, "Hey, kid, you in this match too?" And I said, "No, sir, I'm not. But we're aware, and I'm not going to mention his condition, but we know that you're not allowed to gig because of things going on in your life. Jerome Cody, who you're wrestling, doesn't know how to gig. He's never done it. Gary Jackson knows how to gig, but he's not going to. And Philly Blunt has never gigged. So since there's going to be no blood in the main event, they want me and Jeff Hawkins to bleed. Are you in the cage?" And I said, "Well, no, sir, I'm not in the cage." "Well, the cage has got to have blood. I taught you better than that. Take them damn gigs off. If you're not in the cage, you're not juicing. There ain't going to be any juice unless it's in the cage." So now I'm being scolded by one of my all-time favorites. I'll love Bob Orton until the day I die. So I'm taking my blades off, and I'm like, I got my butt chewed. So fast forward, the show's over. Bob's sitting there, and he's pulling, and it's not coming off. It's not coming off. He reaches in his bag, and he forgot his scissors. He looks over at me all humble, and he goes, "Hey, kid, you wouldn't happen to have any scissors, would you?" And I said, "No, unfortunately, Bob, I don't. I cut my gigs before I leave the house. I don't bring scissors with me." "Well, shit. You happen to have those gigs that I told you to take off? Maybe you can cut this thing off my damn arm." And I'm sitting there with a gig, cutting his cast off, just smiling at him like, throw my gigs away. Now you need them, old man. He's laughing his ass off.
Wow. That's Bob Orton for you.
Yeah. God, I love Bob.
It's crazy to think his son is now like one of these people that you think of when you think of the wrestling business. Like how do you feel watching Randy Orton in his prime now? Like doing so much?
Randy is the same guy now that he was then, but he's not that wild early 20s that he was. Randy is 2 years older than I am. And me and Randy, we go way back when we would book Bob and Randy wasn't wrestling. Him and I would go up in the catwalks and watch his dad work because he was afraid. He didn't want to sit in the crowds. Strangely enough, Randy doesn't like crowds.
Wow.
And but to watch him in his element, he is just as good, if not better, than his dad was back in the day. I mean, him and Bob Orton are two mirrors, and I'm hearing it in his promos. Back in the day when, we were just teenagers, Randy had a teenager voice, but now when I listen to his promos and I'm starting to hear the air, I'm starting to hear that country twang come out. He sounds just like his dad. He's starting to look like his dad too. So,
except he didn't have that curly hair like his dad did.
Yeah. Randy, I don't think will ever grow hair. Randy's a military boy. He loves that high and tight.
That weird like military hairstyle for him. Then he shaved his head. Yeah,
he'll always have short hair. Matter of fact, I don't think the longest I ever saw Randy's hair. And if you do your research and look up pictures of Randy Orton from when he first started out, there's a picture of him standing in front of a blue background, That picture is from the MMWA SICW upstairs in the locker room. That was his very first promo shot. That's the longest I've ever seen that man's hair.
Oh, wow. That's crazy. Because it's like, you think that, like, you've been in this business for so long now. He'll be back, guys. He'll be back. He'll be back, guys. You've been in the business. He's like, yeah. Oh, he'll be back. So Lightfoot will be right back. But yeah, man, this is one of these episodes, guys, that we will never forget here on Dudes at Ringside. Like, Jeremy, he has something, and it's hard to say when you do a podcast with so many wrestlers that I've interviewed over the years. That here comes Jeremy's back.
Got it.
Sorry about that, guys. I don't know what happened.
I don't know either. It said podcast ended. I was like, okay, well, WWE suing us.
Oh God, I'd be freaked out if it did that. Oh God. I'll find out later.
Well, that's another funny story.
There you go.
To involve a past wrestler. I love telling stories of people that have passed on because nobody gets in trouble. You know, I don't like telling stories of people that are still around because you never know who's listening. But his mom, my ex-wife, still has a paper from a lawyer, a cease and assist order from the Ultimate Warrior that I stole his war paint.
Huh.
Yeah. We had it framed at our house for the longest time. And my ex-wife, wife at the time, got a hold of our lawyer, and he wrote back and he said, hey, I don't have the money like your lawyer has, but we've got a case because Jeremy doesn't have a point at the top of his head and his paint doesn't go down his nose. So you don't have any ground to stand on. The makeup is not the same. So it was pretty cool to get a letter in the mail, a cease and assist, that Jim Warrior wanted us to stop using the war paint.
It's like that episode of South Park when this episode of Big Bang Theory when Sheldon gets the lawsuit from Spock. He's like, yeah. Oh my God, I have the autograph from Dr. Spock. But it's a cease and desist. It's still an autograph.
Exactly. Yeah, I was marking out but freaking out at the same time because I'm like, I can't afford a lawyer to take on the Ultimate Warrior. But at the same time, he signed the paper. I have it. You know,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, your mom still got it somewhere.
Never knew that.
Now you got to find that and put that on your wall in your retirement.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah. If you guys are watching on Facebook, don't forget to like the thing. I could see it on my screen if you got one like on there from one of your friends. Joe Monroe, my friend, my podcast friend, Joe would like this post. Don't forget, everybody else that's watching this podcast, if anybody has any questions,
yeah, pop them up. Any questions? Please
comment away. Like Joe, is there like now that you've been in the business this long, have you ever seen it? And like let's talk about the wrestlers, the young wrestlers you have touched, and you have. Okay. Like help mold their characters. Let's name drop some people. I know one of them, Maddie Monarch. Let's talk about Maddie Monarch. When did you meet her?
The way I met Maddie, I didn't meet her until 2018, but it was 2016. I got contacted and they said, "Hey, we've got this this sweet little girl. She's like 4'9". And she's got your eyes. And I said, okay, well, that's cool. I'm glad she's got my eyes. But she also has your style. And it wasn't taught to her. She's doing it naturally. She looks like a Lightfoot. She runs the ropes like you. She flips her hair like you. And I said, okay, what are you getting at? And they said, can she be? And at the time, it was Madison Lightfoot. And so I was like, that's fine. I don't mind. So she didn't end up using the gimmick. And fast forward 2 years later, and we're working a show in Quincy, Illinois. All right, Kay, we'll see you in the morning. Thanks for watching.
Thank you for coming in. Don't forget to go on YouTube. I sent the link on Facebook to go give me a nice subscribe on YouTube. Really helps me out. You could go check out all my episodes that I'm having coming up and check out my past ones. Definitely give my guests a follow. Like, go in and buy some merch. He's a good guy, and I'm so proud of you, man. This is such a good thing for you, and I'm so happy that I'm helping you close out your wrestling career with this.
Kay's she's one of our merchandisers. She sells a lot of the merchandise for a lot of the local wrestlers. So she does an awesome job. She gets to the show at like 9 a.m., sets up her table. She's there before the ring even gets there.
Oh, wow.
She'll help with chairs. She'll do what I've even seen the woman carry ropes in before.
That's
so,
cool.
I mean, she's an amazing person.
Yeah.
But what story was we were talking about Maddie. Yeah. So we fast forward 2 years later, and I had totally, I don't want to say forgot, but I never heard anything else from it. So I figured the gimmick was never happening. We get there and, we meet all the people, and there's this little short girl walking around, and I'm like, that girl's a wrestler? Wow. And then I watched her in ring, and I thought the same thing they said. I'm like, man, she flips her hair. She twists her arm before she does, and she had been watching tapes. And there we go, showing our age again. They don't have tapes anymore. It's all YouTube now. But
or Instagram videos.
Right. So afterwards, she introduced herself, and she said, "You were going to be the guy that was going to play my dad." And I'm like, "Oh my goodness, I remember that gimmick. I see that you went with a different one. That's cool." I got back to Colorado. I was living in Colorado at the time. She messaged me, and she was like, "You were such like an inspirational wrestler to all the guys in the locker room. You're an absolute sweetheart." Yep, there's Austin's mom right there.
Hi, Mom.
That is a 3-time.
Thank you for coming to help us join us with this awesome send off for my buddy Lightfoot here.
He is also a legend. That is a 3-time ladies champion at the MMWA SICW.
When are you going to send me a message to come on Dudes at Ringside? Jennifer, do you want to, if you're available to join us tonight for this interview, you can come in as well. What do you think?
There you go.
Would you mind if I send her the message?
The wild thing is when everybody hears Lightfoot's ex-wife, they're we won't say anything or blah blah blah. Her and I are better friends now than we were when we were married. We get along so much better. And I'm not going to get religious on you, but that's the power of God. The two of us were brought together to create this. We were not brought together to be an item forever. We were simply brought together to create him and then become friends. And that to me, that's my little religious push for you.
Okay.
But anyway, back to Maddie again. So
back to Maddie.
She goes, "You're such an inspiration. Would you mind if we did it? But I'm still going to use the name that she was using at the time." And I said, "Absolutely. We can find a way to mold the angle that maybe you start getting sent emails and you start getting sent letters letting you know that you're following not only your dream, but your bloodline." And then finally it culminated at the CHWA. She was in the match with Ashlyn Alexander and Johnny Banks. And Johnny Banks started berating her. Her husband at the time is also a pro wrestler. They're no longer together. She's now engaged to a pro wrestler as well. Love both of them. I don't hate her ex-husband. I love him to death. I love her fiance right now. Good kids. So Johnny Banks is berating her that, "Okay, great, you're going to bring your husband to the ring and I'm going to have to beat his ass again," and blah, blah, blah. And all that kid said was, "Oh, Dad." And that whole crowd went nuts. Him and I walked out. Rest was history.
Yeah, Jennifer, if you want to join us for the stream tonight, I sent the StreamYard link.
It was CHWA debut.
And you know what? If she can't make it tonight, please message Lightfoot, and you can get all my information. If you have Instagram, message Dudes at Ringside podcast page. I would love to.
The one cool thing is I've heard rumor that Her character was Alexis, which was in honor of our late daughter. Our daughter's name was Alexis, and she actually took that name to honor our daughter. But I have heard rumor that Alexis is going to be inducted into the St. Louis Wrestling Hall of Fame very soon. So maybe once she gets around that time that she's getting used to being back in front of the fans and everything, I'll send her your way.
Please.
So,
I think she said, sorry, what she said, I forgot a 4-year-old going crazy.
She got a 4-year-old. Okay, yeah, that's her daughter. So
yeah, like
That's
whenever you're available, Jennifer, like hit me up on Facebook. Or Lightfoot could send you my information on Instagram and Facebook, and we could work on a date like with me and Lightfoot did for this interview. Like, let's name some other young wrestlers that you've molded and you affected them, like made them change, like help them with their journey. Like you were on yours. Who are some of the other younger wrestlers you've?
Oh, the entire locker room of CHWA. I fell in love with those kids the moment I saw one of their first shows. And I saw a show of theirs before I even debuted with them. They were wrestling in front of like 12 people. They had a little 12-foot ring. The ceiling was barely grazing their heads. But the passion, the moves weren't crisp. Some of the storylines were questionable, but man, you could feel the energy off these kids through the screen. They wanted this so bad. And the beauty part about CHWA, and I will brag about this company until the day I die, has nothing to do with the fact that I signed a legend contract with them. I am now CHWA after I retire. I am CHWA after I die. But when a promotion starts, the promoter has a startup fund of, let's say, $100,000. And he's got to buy a ring. He's got to buy his promotion, but he had money. CHWA, these kids started in the backyard.
Wow.
Taking bumps on concrete, taking bumps on the ground, their passion. Then finally, from mowing lawns and chores and everything else, scraped up enough money to buy that little bitty 12-foot ring. I mean, yeah, it wasn't, this a beautiful, elaborate, high spots ring or anything, but it was a pro ring. And they started setting it up in the backyard, and they were putting on shows. And then eventually they started finding buildings, and then they started gathering a following. And then once veterans started, they were putting on shows. Like seeing these kids in the side view, then they wanted to start helping them. And so they are the true underdog story. They came from absolutely nothing till now being the top wrestling company in the Midwest. They rank right up there with Dynamo Pro, which has been around since the late 90s. They rank up there with MMWA, which is the creme de la creme, the granddaddy of them all. It's been a wrestling company since 1974 in St. Louis. They rank up there with SICW. Legendary St. Louis wrestlers are now wanting to work for this company that at one time people were laughing at because they weren't drawing. I could not be any more proud of all of these kids. So that entire locker room, I helped. If it was so much as teaching just one thing, like telling somebody, hey man, before you throw that punch, draw it back. Let the people absorb it. And then they realized, okay, just me pulling back gets a bigger pop. I'm going to try that with my kick. I'm going to try that with my body slam. That locker room, man, they have evolved so much. They came from being the slithering little slug that people stepped over to get to a real show to now being this massive beast that people are afraid of.
So
CHWA for life. Exactly, Karen. That's another amazing supporter of CHWA. Everybody will
Thanks,
see
man.
her at the show tomorrow night. She'll be taking pictures and videos, and actually is going to be running my photo booth for all the people watching. Doors open at 6, bell time is at 7, but between the 6 o'clock and 7 o'clock hour, there will be a booth where you can come, and Junior here will be in war paint as well. You can get your picture taken with all the members of the Lightfoot dynasty for that hour, and then I'm going to come back out during intermission, and I do pictures with everybody. Pictures are free. Either hand Karen your phone or give Karen your Facebook, and she will take the picture for you and tag it. All I ask is tag us. And then after that, that will be the last opportunity anybody ever gets to take pictures of me in my gear, because all that gear is going into a shadow box that I'm going to put in my office. So
Well, what does it feel like now, knowing that your son he's in the business? Like, what does it feel like, Junior, to be like in this? Like, is he going in? Is he training to be in the business, or are you going to be in the business?
It's in the works. The funny thing was, his first match ever was at a show we call John Holt Yo, which is we honor a man that passed away of cancer. And John Holt was just like Kamala, had a heart of gold, bigger CHWA supporter than anybody on this planet. So we dedicate our WrestleMania, for lack of a better term, to him, and we named the pay-per-view after him. So we're at John Holt Yo. It was at Glen Carbon, Illinois, and they call for a battle royal. It's the traditional John Holt Yo battle royal. Austin always gets in the ring with me and celebrates with the fans. So he walks me out to the ring for the royal. He gets in the ring with me. He's celebrating with the fans, and I give him the little Iggy, like, get out. I'm in the battle royal, Dad. What? I'm like, okay, not only do I now have to protect myself, shoot wise, I've got to protect you, because these guys don't never worked you before. And on top of that, then I got to protect my ass and his, because we hadn't told Jen yet, his mom.
She didn't find out until
the next day.
And she was going to come. She went to the show the day after. And she's like, man, I wish I was at that show. And it was a great opportunity to have my first match as a battle royal at John Holt, one of our biggest pay-per-views we hold every year.
The wild thing is that John Holt, the second one, it wasn't the second one. For the company, it was the 9th one. But for us, being with the company, it was our second one. That wasn't John Holt. It was New Beginnings, the battle royal.
The one that I was in?
Yeah, it was no, your first royal was at John Holt.
John Holt.
But you were also in the New Beginnings royal. And yes, there is a clip of this on YouTube. I wish I could tag it, but I'll send it to you for future reference.
Yeah.
Again, I didn't know that he was involved in the battle royal. It's not that he was afraid to tell me, but he's a Lightfoot. He has a process to get himself amped up and ready. So I drew number 10. I believe he drew number 12.
I was 14.
14, okay. So I'm out there and I'm clearing house. I hear his music faintly. And I get pissed because I'm like, who's using my kid's music? I turn and here it is. It's him. He comes in the ring, and one of my fellow warriors, the guy I'm wrestling tomorrow, Angelo Grimsley, charges at him with a clothesline. He ducks it, hits a sit-out hip toss. Then he starts beating up on Jed, which is Waylon's partner. Jebediah. So I'm thinking, you know what, man? I'm going to teach this kid a lesson. And this was all improv. This was not worked. This was not. I'm telling you straight shoot, man. I was going to give you a 100% shoot. I'm thinking I'm going to get this kid. I'm going to show him that, okay, you can be a wrestler, but you got to learn to take your lumps. This little kid, I spin him around and I kick him in the gut. And it wasn't a worked kick. I mean, it was pretty snug.
Mm-hmm.
I scoop him up I scoop him up in the Lightfoot driver because I'm going to drive him out. One, I want to see if he's going to sell it. Two, I want to see if he can take it because unfortunately I've been told that when I drive somebody down, it's a pretty stiff hit.
Oh, geez.
He wiggled out of it, Joe.
Oh,
he
God.
wiggled out of the freaking driver. I turn around. He hits me with my own damn finish.
Oh, no.
Scoops me up and drives me. What I didn't know if I was more angry that my kid was able to scoop me up because I outweigh him by at least 60 pounds. The fact that I just got hit with my own damn move, or the fact that the times that I've hit that finish, I get the, all right, this kid gets a damn standing ovation for hitting me with my own freaking move.
Oh, my
So-
God. No way. Oh, my God.
But it is awesome because he is the fourth generation. And that's the beauty part, is he is legitimately the fourth generation. My grandfather was Danny Little Bear, which all the local guys, local fans that are old enough to remember wrestling at the Chase, Danny Little Bear was my grandfather. Then you have my father, which was a manager. He wrestled maybe once or twice in kind of a gimmick match, but was never a wrestler. He was always a manager. But my father's Doc Lombardi. Then you have me. So he is a fourth generation, which is just unheard of.
Have you ever thought of doing when I was at an ISPW show in Jersey, Alpha Jr. was there, and he has a family. I have to find, if I can find the picture online, I'll send it to you on Facebook. It's like the family dynasty picture. So it's like Alpha, Sika, and Alpha. It's all the family with the big Chief Maivia on top and all of them around it. Have you ever thought of doing like an 8x10 picture and like pictures you put on the wall, like a family picture? Have you ever thought of doing something like that?
If anybody out there that's watching right now, I am not computer savvy. As you saw before we came online, you heard me cussing this phone out because I did not know how to set the things up, and he had to do it. But if there's anybody watching that knows how to do all that gluing together and superimposing, do they still use the word superimpose?
Yeah, I think it's superimpose. Yeah.
Okay. Anybody that wants to do it, message me on Facebook. I will get you the pictures of the family. And if somebody wants to make that 8x10, I mean, the Lightfoot dynasty spans so far. You've got Danny Little Bear from the Chase. You've got Doc Lombardi from the CSWA days. You've got Jeremy Lightfoot from the late 90s till now, 2024. You've got Austin Lightfoot, which is the up-and-comer. But at the same time, then you've got the branches. You've got Maddie Monarch, which is my daughter. You've got my two, I guess you would call them stepbrothers because my father adopted them. But I think that's a stepbrother. But you've got Arson and you've got Stealth, those two, which was an amazing tag team. My brother, my actual brother, was AJ Garrett, the bully AJ Garrett. He didn't stay in long. It just wasn't for him. But the dynasty is huge. You have his mom, which is the first lady of the Lightfoot family, 3-time MMWA ladies champion. I mean, the list goes on. This kid comes from a wrestling bloodline, I need
to get her on the podcast whenever. We have to really give her my information because I've had so many women's wrestlers on the podcast.
I'll give you a funny Jennifer/Alexis story.
Okay.
You were like 6 months old when this happened. So Harley Race ran the company called World League Wrestling, WLW. And everybody kept telling me that one day Harley was going to call. So I'm sitting in our living room. She was out with her mom or whatever, Lord rest her soul. And she had walked in the door as I answered the phone. And this poor woman saw the pain in my face and the disgust and the anger. I pick up the phone and I hear that gravelly Harley Race voice. And he goes, "Hi, this is Harley Race with World League Wrestling." I'm shitting bullets at this point. Finally, this man called. Finally, I'm ready. This is great. I'm like, "Harley, I've been a fan, 8-time NWA champion. I'm so happy. Thank you for having me at your training center and everything else. What can I do for you, sir?" "I need to speak to Alexis Lightfoot." Who? "I need to speak to Alexis Lightfoot." "I don't, who are you?" I'm like, "I'm her husband, the one that's been wrestling 8 years longer than her. What do you want with her?" And he was like, "I need to speak to her. It's none of your damn business." I hand her the phone, and I'm sitting there, and I mean like a 5-year-old, man. I am pouting. Why is Harley Race calling my wife? She hangs up the phone, and she's doing the little dance. And I said, "What are you dancing about?" "I got booked with WLW before you did." And she ran into it. I'm like, this is bullshit. So she is the only Lightfoot that has worked for WLW.
Wow. Wow. That's crazy, man. Like the legendary Harley Race. Like, did you ever get a chance to just sit with him backstage and get like a conversation going with him, or you never got a chance to? What was it like to work with Harley? Like, what was it like to talk to him? Like,
well, I did work a show with Harley in Pacific, Missouri. It was Harley and Gordon Sully. I'm trying to think what I think we had Greg the Hammer Valentine on that card. Bob Orton was on that card. And Harley is very mystique. If he doesn't know you, because people have told me numerous times that, they've had full-blown conversations with this man. I never have. I would listen to his stories of shooting, and that gravelly voice was enough to scare the bejesus out of you. But he was all, because people have told me numerous times. Oh, okay, it's playing back. It was weird. I had heard a playback.
Got a little crazy at that moment. Sorry about that.
It's all good. But you could see the passion in that man's eyes too. Even though he had already been in the business since the late 60s, you could still see the passion in his eyes. That man truly loved this business. And he was a man's man, so he really wouldn't admit it, but he truly loved helping the younger generation. So, yeah, that was one cool part. My ex-wife may have better stories with him because she actually hung out in the locker room with him. But other than that.
So, getting closer to the end of this fun interview, and Jeremy, I want to thank you so much for taking this opportunity to coming on Dudes at Ringside. This podcast is internationally known. We've had guests from all over the world, but we never had a person like you that's been in this business. And your last match is less than 24 hours from now. Mm-hmm. What is going through your mind, Jeremy? My eyes are getting teary. Sorry. I love independent wrestling so much because it means so much. It makes me so happy that you choose Joe's Dudes at Ringside podcast. So just 24 hours, Jeremy. What is your thinking, man? What's in your heart? Like, how are you feeling about this match?
Well, I'm keeping it calm and cool, but that's partially the dad coming out of me. I'm doing that for him to show him that, man, you got to just be cool and calm. But to be honest, that little 16-year-old kid in my head is sweating bullets. I'm more nervous for this match than I was my first, because my first match, nobody knew me at all. I wasn't the legend, and I hate that L word. I always have. I've learned to accept it because people are still going to keep calling me that word. But I'm so humble that I don't feel I'm one. But I didn't have the legendary status. I wasn't the Native Nightmare. My first moniker was the Apache Kid. I mean, and that was exactly what I was a kid. Now I'm going into this match with 26 years of history behind me. 26 years of memories for everybody in that crowd.
Wow.
20 years. Whoa, there we are.
There we are.
Okay.
20 years of memories for him. 26 years for my father. On top of that, my father's 26-year career that I have to live up to. My grandfather's shortened career that I have to live up to. I mean, the weight got heavy. It's the equivalent of going to the gym and seeing a bicep appear for the first time, but you're only lifting 20 pounds. Now you've got 500 people watching you, and you're about to curl everything you've ever lifted. I'm sweating bullets, Joe. I'm shitting bricks, man. But I do know, and this is the confidence I have, I do know that the moment the war paint hits and the tights are on and the boots are laced, I'm no longer Jeremy Jones. I'm no longer that Italian kid that had a dream. I'm no longer the guy that watched wrestling and wanted to do it. I am now that legend. I am the native nightmare. I am the guy that's going to go out there and carry 26 years of weight over my head numerous times. And I am the guy that's going to go 25 minutes plus with Angelo Grimsley and give that kid the match of his life. And I'm going to give you my blood. I'm going to give you my sweat, and I'm going to give you my tears. And if I die in that ring, my last memory is going to be performing in front of the people that kept me going for 26 years. So even though it's nervous and it's scary, I'm ready for that challenge because I know Jeremy Jones can't handle it, but I know Lightfoot can. And when I say Lightfoot, I point to my heart because that's where that man lives. And that demon is a mean sumbitch. So,
like, in closing, Jeremy, if there's any kids watching this podcast, I'm sorry about the first little part, but if they're just getting into thinking about joining the business because they love professional wrestling, what kind of advice would you give them?
listen close.
I'm listening.
And that's part of the advice I would give. There's too many wrestlers today, young rookies, that want to prove to the veterans that they can talk. Anybody can talk. Anybody can learn speech. Listen. Listen to the road stories. Listen. Don't listen to just the me and such were in there and we went 20 minutes. That's the easy part. Listen how they booked their hotels later. Listen how they saved money by stacking 9 wrestlers in one room. Listen how they rode 5 deep to save money on gas. Listen how they were able to get meals on the road. There is no money in independent wrestling. Yeah, you're going to make a couple $100 selling shirts if your gimmick is good, but you could save money. Listen to these veterans that have been on the road and done these things. At the same time, less is more. Telling a story, when you read a book, there doesn't need to be 9,000 words in that book to explain to you what's happening. You can tell somebody with 10 words your entire life story. So less is more. Don't go out there and be a spot monkey. Don't hit that move because it's the coolest move ever. Tell me why you're hitting that move. Tell me why that move hurt him. Build up to it. I can't, because I'm a family type person, I can't explain how I explain it to kids, or how not to kids, but to future wrestlers. So I'm going to give you the movie reference. I want all you kids out there that have a passion for this business, not because you want to be a wrestler, but an actual passion for this business. I want you to look at movie prices today. I'm going to give you my movie comparison. You want to get my other comparison, which is the R-rated comparison, come to St. Louis and I'll train you. But you got to the movie theater. Each ticket that you bought was $20. You've been watching the trailer for this movie. for the last 4 months. It's finally here. So you spent $20 on that ticket. You went to the concession stand. You spent $20 on just yourself for concessions. You've walked all the way from the ticket booth to the theater. You found the perfect seat. You sat down. You're comfortable. Superman comes out, bitch slaps Lex Luthor, roll credits. Do you feel as if you got screwed? Yes, you did. Treat wrestling like that movie. Build up to that monster finish. Build up to that 2-hour match. Give them fans what they paid, because your fans on the indie scene are not business savvy. They are not bankers. They're not lawyers. They're people just like you and me. They're people that work at gas stations for minimum wage. You are their hero. They can't pay the $79.95 to go see John Cena. You are their John Cena. And they just took a quarter of what they made to see you. Give it to them. Show them that you appreciate it. And what I mean by that, buy gear. Don't go there wearing what you frickin' wore to the show and pants and kick pads. Buy pro gear. Do it for them. Get a character that relates to these people and show them that you are their wrestler. Show the passion, and there's a chance that you might get watched. But even if you don't get watched from the big time, you got watched by the small time. And I can tell you guys from personal experience, when I go to Six Flags and somebody that's about 10 years younger than me comes running up and go, man, I remember you and Jeff Hawkins in the cage. I remember you taking on your tag team partner, Brody, in a strap match. That means more to me than if I go out of town and somebody recognizes me, because that person paid everything they had and probably didn't eat the next week to watch me perform. So that means more to me. So respect it, learn it, do everything you can to love it, and it will love you back. It will not physically love you back. You're going to hurt, but it will love you back in some way, shape, or form. That's the best advice I can give.
Awesome. That's spot on, and it went a little further than 90% of my guests that give me that end little message. Jeremy, if my fans want to get like some last minute merch, do you have like a store, or could they only get them at the shows, the t-shirts?
What is happening? It's funny you mentioned that. Me and my merchandise team had this conversation the other day, because they have so much merch and I'm retiring tomorrow. What they can do is reach out to me on Facebook. I always check my message request. Don't send a friend request, because I only friend actual friends. I believe that word is what it should be. But I always check my message requests. Send me a message and I will hook you up with the people that do my merch. They are willing to take orders. They are willing to ship. And I can get Lightfoot cups. I can get Lightfoot 8x10s. I can get shirts, everything sent to you. Just contact me on Facebook. Look up Jeremy Jones. If you do happen to type in Jeremy Lightfoot in the search, it will bring me up, because that was what I was originally on there. But now that I'm retiring, it's time to live life as me. So I've already switched everything over.
Awesome, Jeremy. I want to thank you so much for taking the opportunity to come on the podcast, and to send yourself off in the awesome dancing in the sunrise with your son right next to you. Good luck tomorrow. I know you're going to put all your heart into that match.
Everything into it.
Just remember, think of the Panther. But I can't be there in person, brother. But think of me in spirit. I'll be there in the front with me and my big glasses. I don't know why my set will be behind me. I'll be just like,
hey, you know what? That's it. That's what I remember. So I'll see the set behind you when I look out there. So
your son will be like, Joe, he really brought the set. Yeah, it just says that. The set will be, people sitting behind me like, this son of a bitch. Yeah, you can't be. I'll bring my Jason mask, my Ultimo. You know,
Hey, there
my
we
other
go.
mask my other mask will be just floating right here because I had some cool other masks that you had in my other set, and I'm like, sorry, I couldn't put you on the set today, Jason. Jason kind of took. Would you say no to Jason Voorhees? I don't think so.
Oh no, God no!
I'd be
I've
like-
seen all his movies.
I'd
I'm
be like,
not saying
"Jason,
no to him.
I'm sorry, but I think you would rip my tail off, beat me with it, and then throw me into the river."
Right.
These glasses.
But, yeah.
He'll stab me with my glasses into the throat. But Jeremy and Junior, thank you so much for coming on the podcast tonight. It means a lot. I'm Joe Panther III.
I'm Jeremy Lightfoot,
I'm Austin Lightfoot.
and you're
we
watching
will catch you.
Ringside
Sorry,
Dudes
go
at
on.
Ringside.
And we will catch you in the next one.